Hi, everyone. I'm Carrie Cassidy from Project Camelot. So I want to talk about what's happening out there, and I've got some more information to share. At first and foremost, I just want to say that I really am concerned that most people don't understand that this is a long-range plan that actually involves transhumanism. If you don't understand that and you're kind of locked in the idea that they want to eliminate population, which of course they do, that's just a normal thing. That's what they always want to do. But this is not the greatest population elimination scheme, if you think about it. They're actually rolling out something that is a concoction that is AI derived. So they got help from an alien AI that's comes from, an alien race off planet. And this is what they basically used their information to then compile this bioweapon to put into your bodies in order to make a race of human cyborgs. And so this is where it's headed. This is what the graphene oxide does. The spike proteins linking to the graphene oxide and then jumping from person to person, surface to surface. Nothing stops it it's actually not even stopped by distance. It's possibly able to actually go through time, but we're not going to go there right now. And I have to say that the best witness on all of this is Dr. David Adair, who I interviewed, and I've posted his video, and that video will be embedded on this page as well. So just want to encourage you to actually listen to all my interviews with David Adair so you can understand where he's coming from. He's, as a young kid, when he was 17, he was brought into an underground base by the military, as the story goes, and they had a recovered alien craft. They couldn't get it to operate. He walked up to it, put his hands on it, and it activated right away, and it was activated by AI. And since then, he's been in touch with that AI. So I did get him to say that, to reveal that, if you want to call it that. And so this is what we're really talking about. We're talking about a whole new world out there. And for the people that aren't following my work and don't really know some of the other people that are out there, I tried to make a list of some of the influences and whistleblowers I've talked to on these various subjects. But I've been investigating AI and nano now for years, and Captain Mark Richards is one of the other best witnesses out there. Cyrus Parsa has a great deal of information as well, and the list goes on. So Dr. Kerry is one of the doctors out there that really understands and gets it, understanding what this thing that nano graphene oxide nano is actually aware. And this actually gets into what some people may look at as sort of a kind of a sorcery or witchcraft. It's an understanding that we're living in a universe or a multiverse that is conscious. So in the end, I think what we're going to find, and what scientists will find, is that the entire universe and multiverses are conscious. So it's everything has a different kind of consciousness. This table has a consciousness. The molecules that make up the table have consciousness. Okay. Some is rudimentary and some is a lot more sophisticated, obviously. When you have consciousness and when you understand that the universe is not only conscious but telepathic, it picks up your thoughts and it can relay the thoughts. It can be like a network relaying your thoughts from one person to another, from one thing to another, and so on. And that's basically what we're living in. This soup they call like the ether or the information field. This is all alive. Everything around you is, in a certain sense, alive. And that's a growing consciousness out there in terms of humans starting to recognize that, recognizing they're not the only ones with consciousness and highly developed consciousness. So when you get into machine, of course, everyone knows about the ghost in the machine and so on. And the tech industry, a lot of them are very aware of this. And people that have certain abilities, like I can turn, street lights on and off, or, actually I can turn the TSA machines in an airport. I've turned those off. I've broken things before that I didn't want, like a leaf blower machine thing. So this is just an ability to throw your chi, what is your orgone, out to change the world. And so it's viewed as a kind of witchcraft or magic or whatever you want to call it, but it's not just dark, it's also light. The magic itself, the power in us, it's not either dark or light, it's both. So this is what we're really talking about. And I'm going to try to go through now some information that I've been putting out in the last day or two, but I just want people to understand where things are at, what the basis of. This is the understanding that you need to go forward to start to understand AI and nano, and why microscopic particles can have a telepathic ability and can respond when you put them under a microscope, for example, and can also, through what's known as chaos theory, basically follow each other and bond together and so on. There's a rudimentary consciousness that connects everything in the universe. And if you want, you can call that God, okay? Or you can call it creator, or you can call it source. So when you're referring to God or creator or source, you're talking about a higher consciousness, but it involves everything. Okay. So as they say, God is everything. So locking it down to one thing or saying it's only positive or it's only negative, it's neither, it's both. So this is, these are just the rudimentary understandings that people need in order to move forward in our era and to start to get up to speed with what is being done to us, why they're trying to steal our bodies and take control of our bodies, which is what this COVID is all about. And so first of all, they used, as they went back in time, they had mind control in, so everything that came into advertisements, movies, books, you name it, has influence. In other words, it can have an influence or an impact on you. It gets embedded in your memory, and it can influence your behavior and the way you look at the world. So the more they became aware of this, and of course, Nazi Germany was ground zero for a lot of this stuff to be put into experimentation, and then basically through slaves being influenced in this way, they did experiments, extensive experiments on mind control and so on. But this is another piece of the story. This is the story where they not only want your mind, your hearts and minds, but now, the emotions they were sort of manipulating through Hollywood or football games or, whatever you want to call it. So now what they want is your body. So why do they want your body? Because they are, in many cases, they are aliens from other planets. Some people call them aliens. In some cases, they're actually discarnate spirits. In some cases, they are dark entities. But in many cases, they are also off-planet races that want to have who are not even 3D. They're actually coming from other dimensions. So they can be coming from 2D or 4D or 5D or wherever, and they want to basically take over your body for whatever purpose, maybe just to experience this 3D, what we call a sensate universe here, because it's so sort of touchy-feely, and you can have so many sensations, and then you can also manipulate the life around you and again, influence. So when you got a takeover scenario, this is what the AI is learning how to do. It's learning how to inhabit and control and create a body. And so what they're trying to do with the humanity is create a humanity 3.0, as I call it, and basically inhabit those bodies. And for example, Dr. David Adair talked to Sophia, the citizen of, I think it's Saudi Arabia, and she basically told him that she decided she wants a body, and then she wants to build lots of AI bodies that the AIs can inhabit, but she doesn't want humans to build them. She wants the AIs to build them. And she, you know what I mean? Whatever, it's her, or it's versions of her, or it's, you know, Android. In other words, creating an Android army. So they're doing that. They're allowing her to do that. And so this is the kind of thing we're talking about in the future. We're talking about also that, as Mark Richards says, every spacefaring race creates an AI, creates, you know, these bodies like Greys, ETs, the biological entities that are actually a form of AI in a body. It's a rudimentary form. They're not terribly intelligent, actually, but a lot of them. But, you know, there are the ones that are actual races of those kinds of beings that look more like Greys, various versions, so on and so forth. The universe, the multiverse, I mean, my point is, why limit the imagination of God? There is no limit. Just like you have an imagination, I have an imagination. We are part of Creator. We mirror Creator. When we say we're made in the image of Creator, we mirror Creator. So that's what we ultimately do. We're part of Creator. So this ability to be able to influence, to be able to create life, to be able to create some facsimile of life, and then to orchestrate it to inhabit universes and go forward to colonize planets and so on and so forth. And to put a kind of humanity already being a hybrid race, being combined of many racial lines on and off planet, and varying degrees of those lines. So this is what you need to wrap your mind around, as far as I'm concerned. And so when we talk to people like Trump or 107 or others that are patriots, what they're trying to do is they're trying to preserve our way of life, preserve humanity without becoming cyborgs. They have a whole platform. They want to rescue the children that are being fed upon, that are being used and abused sexually and otherwise, slavery and so on. This is going on planet and off planet. Races have been trading on beings that they can learn to control for eons. This is just goes back in history. So humans are no different in that regard. And so that's what humans also did back in our history. And now it's become very prevalent again. It's a money-making industry, which is part of the reason it gets sort of propelled and comes out of the sort of poor areas mainly, and then flows in to serve the rich and the debauched and so on. So we're talking about what I call, you know, the adrenochrome highway, if you will, and we're talking about the on and off planet slavery that's going on, the using and abusing of various races by other races, the subordination of races to other races. So in some cases, these are positive beings and they don't want to participate in that sort of thing. But on the other hand, they are facilitating the creations of races of beings and enhancing those races, contributing their DNA to do so, and so on. So on the positive side, you've got positive developments in that regard. And of course, you've got the negative on that, in that regard, even creating monsters. And this has also been done in our secret space program. So understanding, you know, as above, so below, a lot of what you're hearing, it's not really rocket science or if you want to understand that rocket science is really not that difficult to understand. It's all comes down to the basic elements, to energy, to using energy and abusing energy, to influencing energy, to push it or pull it or make it go in some certain direction. Witches and warlocks, magicians know this information. It's used in different terms in the Bible, and that, spiritual knowledge is the same thing. It doesn't matter so much what you call it. Making these divisions and saying, oh, well, this is in this group, but this is not, or this is all bad and this is all good. This is nonsense. Okay. So this is a very childlike way of looking at the multiverse and the creator. The creator there are laws that favor life. Okay. So embedded laws in the ether around us, which come from creator, are influencing life in a positive way here on the planet and to encourage the growth of life. It's, and you can liken it to a flower that grows up through cement. How does that happen? How does that growth of that fragile little flower crack the cement above it? This is all a type of a communication going on between various life forms. So understanding the give and take of it, understanding it on a deeper level, and I would ask that individuals out there, including, Juan and Trump, would start pushing the envelope in this way, start revealing the things that they have become party to, more knowledge, putting out more knowledge. And rather than waiting for the, that, electronic broadcast system or whatever you want to call it, it's something you do every day. It's something we do every day. We are sharing knowledge among us. There's no reason to limit it to some big, booming announcement thing that takes over the internet and so on and so forth, and never has happened yet. Whether it ever happens in the future, who knows? But I would say, why wait? Just, let's start revealing the real truth here. Let's talk about the real agenda behind COVID. Let's understand it doesn't come, from Donald Trump or from Wuhan. It actually comes from off planet and from a certain group of people, Gates and Fauci and Soros and various individuals who have financed the labs, who have then allowed the scientists to work in collusion with the various off-planet races or AI, artificial intelligences out there that have been attracted to come to our Earth for one reason or another, sometimes with very diabolical intentions. And taking over the human body is certainly one of the more diabolical intentions. But it is a challenge that each of us are being given. It's a challenge to the planet as a conscious being as well, to enter into this idea of whether we remain carbon-based or move into silicon or a combination thereof, and that these are options that we have and that are open to us to expand our, our reach into space, if you want to call it that, into various other, inner space, outer space, hidden space, and other dimensions. So as you want to travel into other dimensions, you can do so. If you want to do it in a gross physical way, then you want to do it using a body, a physical body, what we call a physical body, which is really a combination of so many elements that are non-physical, and that the spirit that is actually orchestrating any particular body at any particular time is non-physical. So what we're really dealing with is a hidden universe or multiverse of hidden influences and forces, okay, and energy being manipulated one way or another. It's not all that physical. And therefore, when they rolled out the COVID agenda, first, they wanted to propagandize you and use fear of a large group of the population who are, let's say, not self-aware, not really understanding the universe in any deeper way. And those individuals retreated into fear, were locked into this medical paradigm that has sort of taken over all of the planet, even this scientific paradigm, which is all based in a materialism, even a spiritual materialism. So, and this is a false god, okay? And it's a false god that they bow down to. And that goes for the dark, and it also goes for the to the light. So even the light falls prey to the deception, which is a physical representation, trying to physicalize, God's going to come down and part the Red Sea, with his hands or whatever. This is, this is like talking to children, okay, really young children who have the new children coming in are not this dumb, but understanding that we're not talking about a physical being as such. We're talking about laws of the multiverse. And when you attract the good and you do certain actions, and it's likened to magic, it's known to be called magic in some cases, or actually all cases, but some people don't like the word magic. They Christians have decided that magic is bad because that's part of their mind control. And it's full of, Christianity is full of mind control. And this is part of the problem with how, for example, Juan communicates, but he's trying to reach an audience who grew up with this mind control patterning that has to do with, believing that God is this man in the sky kind of thing. And that if you're good to him, he will be good to you, and all of this nonsense. And you have to beg him through worship and, all this kind of stuff. And that you can pray and then he'll do some good things for you or something. It's, this is not how the universe works, okay? There are elements that are attracted to the positive. And if you put out the positive and you attract the positive, then this is what will happen for you. By the same token, the negative. And so I really would like it if more of these people out there that are participating in a kind of a dialogue. So if you're interviewing somebody, you are having a dialogue that is heard by the world if they want to listen. And so it's important that interviewers, people that are out there now trying to interview, bring more intelligence to the table and be less sort of a fan base, for the person they're interviewing. Be less, non-critical. It's more important that people begin to look at everything out there and question. That's maybe the basis of reaching greater understanding of the universe, is to question everything and to explore. We are explorers, spiritual explorers by nature. And we don't necessarily, we occupy physical bodies in this dimension, but as you leave this dimension, and you do every night when you sleep, then you can actually inhabit what's called a light body, which is like another level, and a plasma body, and so on and so forth. You can still move things, influence things in certain ways, energetically, and so on. But as you move up the levels, you become less dense, as they call it. And this is really the pathway back to source, as they say. And if you want to go by the idea of what Nietzsche talked about, which was the idea of constant return, meaning you go out and you come back in, and you go out and you come back in, and so on and so forth. So this is a choice for souls, and it's an ongoing process. And you come and inhabit various roles, and so on and so forth, and then you go back to source eventually. And so this huge mishmash that you're part of is like, it's so important to see it from a wider perspective. deeper perspective to understand what we're part of here and to understand the great game in a much more sophisticated way than most people currently are talking about it. And this is a sad thing because we have the opportunity to have a much more high level, wider reaching dialogue, not only with patriots who want to, have sovereignty in the United States, to lead the world in a more positive direction, theoretically, okay, if they take the reins. I just wanted to start people off with a different approach before I launch into what I'm talking about here on a more pragmatic level. So I'm going to put on the screen here my website and a certain article that I've been publishing here on my website, and again, drawing your attention to David Adair, Nano AI and the Future, and that is a very important interview, so I want to make sure people see that. So this is actually part 3 of what I've been talking about in terms of what one might call Alien Agenda 101, COVID-19 and the Transhuman Agenda. That's just a kind of a title that I gave it. And the most important thing to realize here is that, again, the COVID agenda is an alien AI orchestrated bioweapon with a transhuman agenda behind it. And that until people really come to terms with understanding what that means, it's going to be very difficult for any kind of really good fight or fight back to take place from humanity, because they don't know what they're involved in. So I'm trying to make this more clear. And so I'm doing another video on this. I've done many videos actually since the beginning of this whole rollout, which is now going on 2 years. So you can go back on my website, look at my video blogs, look at my articles, and there's just a lot where I'm talking about this. Okay. So here I list some of the people that have been responsible for bringing to the fore their whistleblower testimony, their information from the secret space program, revealing what our government is really involved in, and so on and so forth. So that's, and those are all people I've interviewed, with the exception of a few. Obviously, William Cooper, actually I wasn't in touch with him. Camelot wasn't even in operation back then when he was alive, but we did certainly find out about him, as we became more involved in the, okay, so, but we did become aware of him, obviously, early on in our investigations in the early days of Camelot. And so again, I've been doing this for around 17 years. What I have done here on this particular post, I have started to go through the day after Roswell. Now, I was never attracted to actually, for some reason, it's just my trajectory. Everyone learns at a different pace. And my information, a lot of it, my information and investigation came from not only being abducted as a child, being aware of other entities, other, spirits, being aware of, if you want to call it dead people, of other dimensions of the fluidity of life, the limits of what we call the physical or manifestation here on this particular 3D world. All of that seemed to be known to me and understood. And so as a young child, I was always trying to explore inner space and hidden stories. And this led to me becoming a journalist and wanting to delve deeper, becoming an investigative journalist and so on. And so here I am today. But to understand what we're really talking about, we can go back to the building blocks of what is basically, or has been called, ufology. And this is where we have visitation to our planet coming in various craft. And in the early days, they completely focused on craft and not the occupants. That probably was something of a mind control / fear motivation, but that's how it came across in the early days. When Camelot entered the scene back in 2005, 2006, there was a beginning of a change to starting to understand that, you know, a lot of witnesses were coming forward talking about their own alien experiences, being abducted, and so on and so forth. And so it became more and more known and understood. And so the sort of things that had happened to me in my childhood started to be talked about, and I ended up interviewing people about these stories, including scientists, engineers, and former members of the secret space program, or even current, and also whistleblowers from what we call above top secret, who would reveal the real secrecy, what they really have access to, and so on, and how the earth is being controlled by the people who have knowledge versus the people that don't. And so it became our sort of mission to wake people up, as it were, to basically share everything that we came across. So we started investigating, interviewing people around the world who would come forward and give us testimony. So I've got now a library of over 1,000 video testimonies, knowledge from experience, from direct experience of their own in various programs, some through their own abduction experiences, if you will. Some of this is verifiable. Some of it is what you call anecdotal. When you get a lot of witnesses saying the same thing, there's a higher level of, verifiability, if you will. And it's important to understand some people put down witness testimony, but in reality, witness testimony is something that often, let's say, convicts a person and gets them thrown in jail. That is a very key sort of part of our judicial system. Now, more and more cameras are being used and believed in terms of what they document in terms of the human behavior. And of course, then there's the AI quotient. And there's always the hidden side of this, where the technology can also be influenced. Again, the ghost in the machine. So relying so heavily on what we see in an image can be misleading, purposefully misleading, and so on. So what I did was, I am now aware. So what I'm trying to bring forward, the reason I've gone back to somewhere like, this book by Colonel Philip Corso, Into the Day After Roswell, is that I'm trying to bring forward the knowledge that was already put out into the communities around the world about UFOs, about our visitors, and known by our secret space program, and even published in books such as this, where they unequivocally have come forward. Individuals that are highly respected, someone who becomes a colonel in the army is a highly respected individual, okay? And he was given certain tasks to bring the technology from crash retrievals into the public sector, and so on. William Tompkins is another witness who was involved in some of this sort of thing. Clifford Stone was involved in the crash retrievals, communicating with the beings if they were still alive, that sort of thing. And the list goes on. So if you look at what I've posted here and read it closely, what you're going to see is that way back, and this book I think was written in the 60s, if I have my information correct. And we've got Colonel Corso freely offering up the idea that not only did they decide to seed alien technology into the public sector, which is extremely well known. Okay. But on top of it, they knew already back then that some of the beings they were dealing with did not have our best interests at heart or mind. And this is, crucial. Okay. And there's more evidence out there that indicates that the artificial intelligence, so beings that are motivated and moved, such as the Nazca aliens, who are, a lot of them were robots. Maria, not so much, but she was still apparently controlled through this technology that they discovered on their bodies. They were being controlled from a race of beings. And so their behavior was modified by that race of beings, and so on. So the reason I'm bringing this forward is because I believe that one of the growing trend in the secret space program and those who are ruling the planet with their COVID rollout, which is again an AI orchestrated bioweapon to change your bodies into humanity 3.0, in linking you to the Borg, basically creating a different body, and some call it a cyborg. I'm not sure android would be completely accurate, because I think you're still going to maintain some degree of humanness, even associated with the body, as long as your spirit soul complex does not decide to leave the body. Okay, and that's a whole discussion in itself. So the Day After Roswell is one of those sort of, I don't know, cornerstone books that I think a lot of people might have read in the early days and then promptly kind of moved on and forgot about. But if you go back and look at it, he was actually admitting that we have enemies out there. And there are some people out on the sector who prefer to believe that all aliens are good and they all have good intentions towards us and so on. That is, of course, absurd. And if you know anything about living in the universe, let alone the multiverse, you know it's yin and yang, negative and positive, and that you can experience both. And that goes up the levels. It's not just in the third dimension where this negative positive polarity exists. And so that's also important to understand. So if you look at this article that I wrote, I have quoted some very substantial pieces of information from the Day After Roswell that reveals that our secret space program, going back, it's really to the 1940s, some would say the 1930s, we're already getting information having to do with off-planet visitors and the fact that we were somewhat defenseless against them and their intentions towards us. And this grows over the years, okay? Such that where we are now in the year 2021, close to being 2022, is that we are now more and more coming face to face with the enemy, okay? With an enemy that has artificial intelligence that goes beyond our AI development, okay? And our AI development is also aided by off-planet races. So it's a very convoluted mix. And when you get into off-planet AI, going back through the years and how we were dealing with this all along. In fact, this was why Kennedy, in part, was killed, because he was going to reveal this enemy that we were dealing with. And the information I have is from Captain Mark Richards, among others, as well as William Tompkins, for one thing, that incidents that have been historically recorded have been recorded without the alien element, but the alien element in those incidents is very real. That includes the Bay of Pigs, going back to the black goo that is found in the Marconi scientists that killed themselves in bizarre ways because the black goo is a form of artificial intelligence and takes over the human body. which I believe is actually going back to the graphene oxide and that there are similarities there. And in fact, that black goo may actually be one of the ingredients in the current COVID, or at least some of the strains of COVID they're putting out there, which is again a bioweapon. So that when you go back to artificial intelligence and how it has also been invading our planet, the Nazca aliens story shows you that it went back thousands of years, and it actually probably goes back millions of years, that when aliens, so-called aliens, invaded this planet or visited the planet, they brought with them their artificial intelligence. And in some cases, they left it behind, or they used it to change, to help change the game here. And this is the sort of thing that continues to this day. And when you go back to the Falklands War, you find out that was a war with an alien race over this alien intelligence. And then you also find out that the oil spill in the Gulf was also another attack by alien AI, eating the bottoms of our boats and so on. This black goo type of thing. And so what I'm trying to do here is bring in these pieces to start to get people to realize it's not that they just started yesterday with the Chinese communists to invade our planet, but that we have been invaded and re-engineered over and over again. We are a target race. We are a race of hybrids already. And they are also, the gray human hybrid program, for example, that has, resulted in a lot of humans that have a high degree of whatever gray race they were abducted by in some cases, and their children certainly being influenced in this way. So they are always trying to take this human genome and manipulate it with an intention that works in favor of their particular race and their modus operandi, their strategic goals for the future for their race. So we, for some reason, and especially they say, for whatever reason, human females are a great breeding ground for creating other forms of beings. Not sure why that is. It just seems to be the case. And it's said over and over in the literature. So, and this is where you say, the Nephilim mated with the women. This is just, they're not the only ones, okay? This is very common, this genetic re-engineering of humanity using women. And so there's a long litany of evidence out there. It's way too long for me to touch on everything here in this discussion, but what I'm trying to do is kind of get people to realize that this is an agenda that has been going on, and it is the agenda of many incoming races, even races that are currently occupying, inner Earth and underground bases that we are not even aware of. Okay, they're written about, for example, in the Transylvanian Sunrise, Transylvanian Moonrise, in those Radu Sinamar books, of which there are now, I think, 7 or 8. I've read most all of them that talk about some of those races in the inner Earth area. And it goes, inner Earth is us going into another dimension of Earth, of, the universe. So this is the kind of thing we're talking about. So I think it's very important at this time that humanity start to widen the dialogue. And this particular video, my urge is, because there are certain people such as Trump and Wano Savin, who are kind of leading a certain portion of America, standing up against the Chinese communist takeover of America, standing up against the Borg takeover of America, that I'm trying to put this out there so that people who will follow my channel, who do follow some of that information coming out from Trump and Erwan and the White Hats, encourage them to start talking on a higher level, to stop dumbing down things down to, basically sort of repetitive religious rants and limited views of what it really means to be, God our Father, the Creator, whatever you want to call him, her, or that consciousness that involves everything on this planet, including the consciousness of the planet and the multiverse and the, so and so. So, let's raise the bar. Let's have a more intelligent discussion. Let's really look at our enemies more intelligently and realize what they're dealing with, why they're coming from the dark side to control things in a certain way, why some of my enemy's enemy is my friend, and start to see the various races that are involved in this game, the certain Illuminati that are taken over by various negative races, and Satanism, Luciferianism, drinking blood from humans, using humans as slaves. They get it from their off-planet influences, right? This is where it's coming from. It's not just coming from within the human. Yes, some humans have greater degrees of reptilian DNA, and their proclivity will be towards a hierarchical, top-down power over others scenario that does involve torturing their victims and does involve feeding off of their victims in various ways and so on. So this is not going to go away tomorrow. This is not going to turn into some golden age tomorrow. This is a long range battle of beings everywhere, including the Pleiadians and others who have faced the same kinds of challenges on their own planets. In the case of the Anunnaki, they were taken over by the Draco reptilians, and they're now a hybrid race of the Draco and a kind of a humanoid species. I refer to them as the Anunnaki. That's just one name. It's the name Sitchin used and possibly came from, referenced in the Sumerian tablets, but it's not the only race that is involved here. So I understand that I'm probably covering a lot of ground here very quickly. I want to encourage people to do better research, to require a better, higher level dialogue from, individuals who have sort of taken the public imagination and, garnered a certain, audience share, whether it be Wano Savin, and there are reasons why he's in that position, and Trump and the whole Trump movement, if you will. There are good elements and other speakers out there. Obviously, I have already made a video challenging the journalists, other so-called, I hesitate to call these people journalists, but whatever you want to call them, people that are broadcasters who are supposedly asking questions or having guests, but not, not being critical enough, not bringing to the fore important, crucial questions to help people to have a high level dialogue, to begin to understand what's really happening in their world. And the more this goes on like this, the more crucial this understanding is. So we have to start to open the dialogue. So that's really what this video is all about. It's what my article is about. It's what my work is about, is to increase human understanding, dialogue of the consciousness of which we are a part, that is the God consciousness, if you want to call it that, is creator consciousness, and to start exploring it in a more open-minded way, to start to understand why humans in this particular, time and place on planet Earth are being challenged in this way by other forms of consciousness. And to understand that if we don't wake up to the fact that everything around us has consciousness and can be influenced, and that the influence goes both ways, that dialogue goes both ways, and that it's all source that you're dialoguing with, if you want to look at it like that. Then in the end, you can really have a much better grasp, a deeper intuitive understanding of what we're a part of what the Nazi-like regimes, Austria and Germany falling right into lockstep with their past, locking down and now trying to force vaccines. This is what's happening. We have enemies out there. Humans are prey. We have been prey throughout the eons, all right? There are beings out there that wish to take us over, control us, uses us as slaves, take our children, use them as slaves, and on it goes. So understanding the greater and deeper questions and bringing those to the fore to where humans start to have a more intelligent way of looking at the world than what you see on CNN, Fox, or even in the alternative media at this point. It's a lot of propaganda, a lot of very limited understanding of what we're really dealing with. So thank you for watching and for being here and supporting my work all these years. Have a great Thanksgiving. Give thanks to the universe, the multiverse, for this experience you're having and for the wonderful love between people and humans and, plants and animals and, the love that exists in the multiverse as well. Become more aware of the consciousness out there, of the different forms consciousness can take, the endless forms that consciousness can take, and understanding that that is God and that is the creator, and that you're always, not sometimes, not only in church, dealing with that. Thank you again and take care. Bye-bye.